on a special Monday, Buffy.
Buffy will face the Master.
An ancient prophecy is about to come true.
Read me the signs! Tell me my fortune!
You think I want anything to happen to you? She's dead.
A special chapter from Buffy.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Season 1, Episode 12, Prophecy Girl, written and directed by Joss Whedon, is the Season 1 finale. All of the plot threads introduced this season culminate in this episode with one big fight against the Master and the forces of Hell. It functions as a restatement of the themes in the movie, and positions Buffy as a heroic Christ figure, and an extended homage to Bram Stoker's Dracula, and especially its 1922 silent film adaptation Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. The rather xenophobic book Dracula depicts the efforts of a small band of Westerners fighting off the evil vampiric Romanian immigrant figures Count Dracula and his three female associates, the Three Sisters, sometimes depicted in film as the Brides of Dracula, as they attempt to invade London, England. Our protagonists consist of Jonathan Harker, the plucky action hero, Dr. John Seward, the head of the asylum where much of the action takes place, Quincy Morris, the rough-hewn Texan good at hunting, Abraham Van Helsing, the Dutch doctor who provides the exposition, and the two women Mina Harker, Jonathan's wife, and Lucy Westenra, Mina's longtime friend. These two women are often merged into one character for film adaptations, including that of Nosferatu. There are also the characters Arthur Holmwood, Lucy's fiancé, and Renfield, a lunatic seduced into serving Count Dracula, only to ultimately be betrayed by him.
They did Dracula, obviously, until we really did Dracula.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer will go on to adapt the novel more overtly in Season 5, Episode 1, Buffy vs. Dracula, while Prophecy Girl captures more of the general themes and creates parallels to the characters and situations depicted both in it and in Nosferatu. Nosferatu began as a straightforward adaptation of the novel, but due to the filmmakers being unable to obtain rights from the Stoker estate, various details like character names were altered from the original script, such as turning Count Dracula into Count Orlok, and Jonathan Harker into Thomas Hutter, though the original character names are sometimes restored in later releases of the film. For clarity, I will refer to Nosferatu characters by the names associated with their Nosferatu incarnations. Though the Stoker estate took offense by the production and tried to have all the copies of the film destroyed,
nobody steals from Dracula.
A legal loophole allowed copies sent to the United States to remain intact, and the film had a profound impact on filmmaking, even inspiring shots in Disney's Dumbo, and is now considered one of the finest silent films. I highly recommend it to anyone interested.
I'm interested.
In addition to the name changes, Nosferatu offered a dramatically different interpretation of the Dracula story. While Count Dracula was associated with animals of all sorts, and he only made a bunch of rats appear one time for Renfield, Nosferatu focused on the rat aspect and made it the main motif of Count Orlok, making him a harbinger of the Black Death with huge swarms of rats, and even giving him a face that kind of looks like a rat's. Orlok's hideous appearance was, of course, used as inspiration for that of the Master in Buffy, as well as later vampire characters Kakistos and the Prince of Lies. The idea was that vampirism in the Buffyverse would act like a disease, with younger vampires like Angel keeping their good looks, while the older ones would suffer later stages and look gray and animalistic.
It's not stuck like that now, is it?
The Master has grown past the curse of human features.
Dracula proper has informed vampire fiction more than anything else, and its impact in Buffy the Vampire Slayer is substantial. The movie can be said to be a bit of a rewritten form of a Dracula adaptation, with Lothos as a Count Dracula, Merrick as a Van Helsing, Pike and Benny respectively as gender-swapped Mina and Lucy, and Buffy as a gender-swapped Jonathan Harker. The first season of the TV show is a darker and edgier version of the movie, so it stands to reason that it would be based off of both Dracula proper and Nosferatu. The episode begins at the Bronze, with Xander ostensibly admitting his feelings for Willow and asking her to the prom, but it turns out that he's just using her for practice for asking Buffy. Given that we know that he knows that Willow likes him, this is a particularly heartless thing for the heart of the Scooby Gang to do. He still has a while to go before he's there.
We're not there yet, but I'm confident.
Meanwhile, the now sympathetic Cordelia and a boy named Kevin are making out in a car when she hears something alarming. They do the standard horror movie routine of, "What was that?" It was probably nothing, echoing Darla from Season 1, Episode 1, Welcome to the Hellmouth. While that episode subverted the cliché by having Darla turn out to be the monster and victimize the boy, this scene subverts the cliché by having it turn out to be Buffy facing off against a vampire. At first she looks vulnerable, positioned lower than her attacker, but she rises up and dramatically slays him, foreshadowing to her fight with the Master. There is an actual external threat, but it's in the process of being handled by a female warrior, and Cordelia and her beau needn't even realize what's going on. The cliché is subverted through feminist positivity.
Did we not put the "gur" in girl?
In the library, Giles reads the Codex, the book that Angel passed along to him in the previous episode, and he comes along an important and disturbing prophecy regarding the Master's ascent. Just as an earthquake hits Sunnydale, the Master laughs triumphantly. This is no ordinary earthquake, but a portent, signaling the end of the world, the day that the Master successfully emerges from his prison and opens the Hellmouth. It's fast approaching, and they can all tell that trouble is on the way.
Only a woman can break his spell. You're in heart, who will offer herself.
The next day, Buffy expresses her worries to Giles, saying that vampires are more numerous and more confident. Buffy's skills as a slayer are improving, but the overall fight is getting harder. Giles is sympathetic, but engrossed in his own studies of the Codex prophecy.
I'm putting my life on the line battling the undead. Look, I broke a nail, okay? I'm wearing a press-on.
This is a funny juxtaposition of the two main aspects of the Buffy character. She's both a fantasy hero and a teenage girl. Two things that usually do not go together, right? While this joke ultimately functions alongside the narrative that brings legitimacy to a person that audiences usually wouldn't respect, it also functions in itself off of the expectation that the two elements do not work together. If one comes in with a thorough respect for teenage girls, it's harder to find that joke funny. It's not a juxtaposition to have a teenage girl as a fantasy hero, if one accepts that teenage girls can be heroes. When one thinks of characters like Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games, and Veronica Mars having minor problems that come with the territory of being teenage girls, that doesn't come across as any kind of humorous juxtaposition with their status as heroes of their stories. Thanks in part to the example of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, modern storytelling has accepted young female heroes to the extent that this kind of joke just wouldn't work today without being sexist. It isn't sexist here in Buffy because the idea was new then and it couldn't work without lampshading, but the joke is an aspect of the show that makes it dated.
It's carbon dating.
A bit later, Xander approaches Buffy and finally gets the nerve to ask her to the prom. This goes about as well as you would expect. Buffy simply isn't interested in him as anything more than a friend, and it's clear that she is attracted to Angel. This scene has great similarity to a part in the Dracula novel, where Lucy has 3 guys propose to her on the same day, and she only has interest in one. Arthur Holmwood, an English suitor, acknowledges to Angel. Lucy describes in detail how Quincy Morris proposes, how she lets him down easy, and how he takes it extremely well. He only wants the best for her, trusts her judgment on who is the best guy for her, and is delighted that he gets to be her friend.
That's my brave girl. It's better worth being late for a chance of winning you than being in time for any other girl in the world. Don't cry, my dear. If it's for me, I'm a hard nut to crack, and I take it standing up. If that other fellow doesn't know his happiness, well, he better look for it soon or he'll have to deal with me. Little girl, your honesty and pluck have made me a friend, and that's rarer than a lover. It's more unselfish anyhow.
Dracula is rather misogynistic, but this scene represents an antidote to the modern sexist idea of the friend zone. It's actually very similar to the modern feminist subversion of the friend zone idea seen in the Carmilla web series.
Yes! I'm in the friend zone. I have made it into the friend zone.
Are you happy about this?
Of course I am. I mean, yeah, I totally want more because, you know, you're super smart and way tough and smoking hot, but, you know, I get it. You're just not into me that way. And, you know, even if you don't like me the way I like you, I still think you're awesome. You're like the Joan of Arc. Of us. Why wouldn't it be awesome to be your friend?
Xander is positioned as Quincy Morris, Lucy's male friend who needs to accept his status as a friend and move on. Quincy Morris does that with flying colors. Xander has the opportunity to do that, but instead he lashes out, takes a dig at her attraction to Angel, and then storms off. Hardly a Quincy Morris, and that does demonstrate sexism on his part. This is the point where we see just how committed the show is to its feminist message. Buffy essentially put Xander in the friend zone, and this enraged him. Now we find out if the show's on his side and blames Buffy, or if it blames Xander. Guess what? It blames Xander. He goes off to pout, Willow finds him, and he decides that she would make a good substitute for taking Buffy to the prom. He asks her out, assuming the answer would be yes because he knows about her interest, but Willow refuses. Thanks to Buffy's influence, she has too much respect for herself to let Xander treat her as only second best. She is attracted to Xander, but she is able to reject him and move on, and Xander is presented as the one in the wrong. Now Xander has to make the decision to be a better person on his own. Another thing of note is that in the middle of babbling to Buffy, Xander facetiously speculates that Willow could have a romantic interest in Buffy.
What's she like in the sack? What?
While technically a gay joke, it's notable for being very neutral in its portrayal of homosexuality, unlike the past negative examples of gay jokes in Season 1, Episode 5, Never Kill a Boy on the First Date, and Season 1, Episode 9, Puppet Show. This shows that even in the first season, Joss Whedon was a better writer for gay portrayals than other Mutant Enemy writers. Similar to the often referenced instance when Joss stepped in to remove a problematic bit of humor from Season 6, Episode 9, Smashed, that would portray being gay as a punishment. Also, isn't it odd that Willow would eventually be written as indeed being attracted to Buffy?
What, you think you have some sort of special buzzbadar or something?
Ms. Calendar, the techno-pagan computer teacher, makes a reappearance. She's been monitoring the signs and knows that the apocalypse is just around the corner. She's been in contact with a group of Italian monks responsible for sealing away Moloch, and one of them has important information about the Anointed One. If anyone in the Buffyverse would be the parallel of Dr. John Seward, it would be her, with her contact's knowledge of the apocalypse and knowledge as to the intel he can offer from his study of Renfield. But I admit it's not a perfect match. Giles makes her tell him everything that she knows, and he calls Angel to meet him after sundown for discussion of the Codex. After sundown, Buffy observes one of the portents, blood in the pipes, and goes to tell Giles. She pauses when she sees Angel for the first time since Season 1, Episode 7, Angel, and doesn't announce her presence, so the two of them keep talking. She overhears Giles repeat the Codex's prophecy that on the following night, Buffy will face the Master and die.
Only a woman can break his spell. Pure in heart, who will offer herself to Nosferatu.
One of the main aspects to distinguish Nosferatu from Dracula is the focus placed on the female lead. The character Ellen Hutter is a blend of Lucy and Mina, characters targeted by Count Dracula. Dracula gets to Lucy and tries to make her his enthralled vampire companion, and the idea that he might do the same to Mina drives the plot, with Mina as a damsel in distress. Jonathan Harker, Abraham Van Helsing, and Quincy Morris act as male heroes to kill the evil vampires and keep Mina safe. Due to budgetary restrictions, Nosferatu was unable to fully retain the male hero element, and as a result, put focus on Ellen as both a damsel in distress and an active figure who enables Orlok's death. This has earned Nosferatu the dubious distinction of being an early feminist film.
Of course, sometimes a little is enough.
The plot involves Thomas Hutter traveling from Germany to Transylvania in order to sell Count Orlok some German real estate, specifically the house across the way from him. While stopping at a small inn, he finds a book of convenient exposition that tells him about the Nosferatu, which is a made-up word that Bram Stoker mistakenly thought to be the Romanian word for vampire, and the means for defeating one, for a maiden pure of heart to lure the Nosferatu and keep him with her into the crow of the cock, which is classically considered holy due to its association with the rising sun, which is also supposed to be holy. The book Dracula has a lot of focus on the sun as a holy element, enabling power over the vampire, but not in it acting as vampire napalm. Nosferatu contains the first depiction of sunlight as a force that kills vampires, so this is tied to a specific series of events that must first be completed, in which a maiden pure of heart lures him and keeps him there with her until the crow of the cock. Despite later works that make it clear that sunlight alone is vampire napalm, Nosferatu is unclear whether or not sunlight alone is the method of defeating Orlok, or if the steps described are literally necessary as some sort of holy spell ending with the crow of the cock and then the sunlight. Regardless, this roadmap is the only means presented in the movie as a viable tactic, even if only as a means of getting Orlok in the sunlight. When Thomas meets with Orlok, Orlok catches a glimpse of a picture of Thomas's wife Ellen, and he is immediately overcome with an obsessive lust. He bites but doesn't kill Thomas, and makes his move on Germany for the express purpose of fulfilling his obsession with Ellen. Ellen has prophetic dreams of his attack, and she tries to tell people about the threat, but, like Cassandra the Prophet, they dismiss her as crazy. The fact that a woman knows what's up but is labeled as a hysterical woman is part of why the film is sometimes considered feminist, and this aspect is played up more in Werner Herzog's 1979 remake, Nosferatu the Vampire. Thomas travels back to her, but is overcome with exhaustion, so she reads the book to find out what's going on. While Thomas recovers, Ellen prepares for her confrontation with the Nosferatu. Before this can happen, Ellen struggles to accept the role that destiny has laid out for her. Similarly, Buffy rejects her part in the prophecy. She is not ready to die yet, and she rejects her role as Slayer. She resigns from her Slayer duties and removes the cross from her neck, symbolically rejecting her role as a Christ figure. Giles and Angel try to persuade her to fight the good fight, but they can't really respond to a 16-year-old girl's honest plea to not have to sacrifice her life.
I don't want to die.
Giles functions very much as a father figure to Buffy. His attempts to keep the truth from Buffy, as seen in the previous episode, were done out of a desire to protect her. We can see here that he was right to do so. She was not ready to handle it. At this point, all of the Scoobies are astray. Buffy has rejected her Slayer duty, Giles and Angel are lost without their Slayer, Xander is suffering from his multiple rejections, and Willow feels lost without her friend Xander. This is part of the hero's journey formula, known by various labels, but essentially being the hero's lowest point in the end of the second act, soon to be followed by a recommitment to the quest and a build to the climax.